Welcome to the Q Podcast.
Q is about conversation.
If we're really concerned about ending poverty, we've got to be more concerned about creating justice.
Our cultural products as Christians need to both defy and resonate with the culture.
And God's doing amazing things. His church is expanding, his church is growing.
It's not what's the purpose of my life, it's what is the purpose that's been assigned.
Stay curious, think well, advance good. This is Q.
Hi, this is Gabe Lyons. Welcome to another edition of the Q Ideas podcast. And today we're talking about celebrity Christianity and not why that's a good thing, but why it's a bad thing. We're talking about the failure of celebrity Christianity and in a culture right now that worships celebrity and idolizes platforms and followers and building everything as big as you can possibly build it so that you can have the most influence in the world for Jesus. I'm speaking a bit sarcastically here, but that's the world we're in. That's what the next generation's hearing. That's what most people in our country hears around the world. That true influence comes through building your platform. But what happens when this ideology starts to infiltrate the church? In this powerful talk, you're going to hear Rich Villodas, who's a pastor who comes out of a wonderful church, New Life Fellowship in Queens, New York. It's a large multiracial church, 75 plus countries represented. And he's also the author of The Deeply Formed Life. And we asked Rich to share with us around this idea of why celebrity Christianity is a failure and what are all the ways we can look out for the pitfalls that can come that start to build in anybody's life that leads to public downfall. We've seen a lot of leaders fall. It's not really new to this era. We've seen it happen throughout every decade, but when it's happening in your moment, it feels like everybody's falling. We know that's not true, but we know that we have seen some of the bigger names, people that have been trusted for decades, for many years, or even some that were new to the scene but became the hottest ticket in town, start to make decisions that their life ultimately crumbled before our very eyes. And that ultimately does so much disservice to the church, to the kingdom, to what God's up to. And any of us are susceptible to sin. It's not to say any of us are better than the other, but it's to say, watch out. This is a warning. And Rich Villodas in this talk is going to warn us and help us better understand the failure of celebrity Christianity.
Congratulations, you are hired. And by the way, you can't park in the church parking lot any longer. Those were the words I heard when I became a pastor at New Life Fellowship Church in Queens, New York City. Those words were puzzling because shouldn't a pastor have his or her own parking spot? Now, our congregation doesn't have many parking spots. We have about 50 parking spots for a church of about 1,500 people. But I would not have access to any of those spots. Now, my talk today is not about parking spots, but about a much larger, deeper issue that this parking spot conversation revealed in me. Those words revealed a seed of celebrityism that was lodged already in my heart before I had language for it. The idea that I wouldn't have easy access to get into the building. The idea that I had to circle to find parking in a crowded neighborhood right before I was about to preach, no less, revealed something that was lodged in my heart. Deep down inside, I thought, I deserve a parking spot. And if I don't get a parking spot, maybe I deserve to have someone park my car for me as I'm about to preach and handle God's word. Before I even had a category for it, it was lodged inside of me. Now, it's important to note that generally speaking, celebrity and Christianity are not necessarily contradictions in terms, because notions of celebrity are often projected onto people. As a matter of fact, Jesus can be regarded as a celebrity in the first century, because wherever Jesus went, throngs of people followed him. Jesus of Nazareth was a household name. You can be sure that people asked him to sign their tunics and autograph their parchment paper. Jesus was very known in those parts. And so the problem before us is not with celebrity in Christianity. The problem before us is celebrityism in Christianity. Christian celebrityism is failure with regard to our witness before Jesus because it's trapped in the lie that mass appeal equals maturity, that influence equals integrity, that charisma equals character. Celebrityism creates a culture in which self-proclaimed influencers assume the role of spiritual mothers and fathers. Celebrityism is deceptive and incompatible with Christian faith because it locates authority in the number of followers and blue checks next to our names. And so celebrityism is not found in the crowds, but in the soul and in the environments that reinforce it. It's a sickness of the soul and a disease of the system. Soul and system. In the wilderness, the devil tempts Jesus to build a ministry that would be based on a kind of ancient celebrityism. The evil one has Jesus trying to live from a different center, a center not rooted in belovedness, but in bread making. A center not rooted in self-giving love, but in spectacular showmanship. A center not rooted in service, but in power. Transform this stone into bread. Jump from the temple and angels will catch you. Bow before me and I'll get you 200,000 Instagram followers. The story shows us that the celebrityism that we are tempted with is one that's marked by entitlement, one that's marked by performance, one that's marked by power. This is the core of celebrityism. Entitlement is found in the expectation that I deserve to be treated differently. Performance is oriented around the lie that my sense of self is predicated on the attention and affirmation of the crowd. This notion of power is expressed in the incessant need to advance my personal agenda, and this is a sickness of the soul. Entitlement, performance, and power. But celebrityism is not just a sickness of the soul, it's a disease of a system. Because celebrityism is reinforced by particular environments. In their really good book, a church called Tove, Scott McKnight and Laura Barringer say it this way. They say, of course, celebrities don't form on their own. Behind every celebrity pastor is an adoring congregation that both loves and supports the celebrity atmosphere. The development of a celebrity culture also doesn't happen overnight. It begins when a pastor has a driving ambition for fame. But it can't take root unless the congregation supports that ambition. Unfortunately, many people want their pastor to be a spiritual hero or a celebrity at some level. They not only want it, but they expect it and find themselves believing it about their pastor. Celebrityism is not monopolized by mega churches and big names. I've seen all kinds of leaders in small churches and medium-sized churches act like they're part of the royal family. And so the question is, if celebrityism is to be resisted, what does it require of us? I think it requires us to ask ourselves 4 significant questions. The first being, have I wrestled honestly with the entitlement I carry? Have I wrestled with my entitlement? Every week at our church, I have to fill out a COVID-19 registration form. It's our way of keeping track of who's in the building in the event there is community spread. Now, I'm the pastor of the church. Why do I have to sign this registration form every single week? It takes literally 20 seconds to fill out the form. But before, the 5 minutes before the 20 seconds, I'm going, why in the world do I have to fill out this form? When I go on a vacation, I need to fill out a form stating how many days I'll be away. And part of me is like, damn it, I've done a lot for this church. Leave me alone. I feel the Spirit moving now. The second question is, am I submitting myself to authority willingly, joyfully, and transparently? I would be lying to you if I told you I do this joyfully, because I don't like being told what to do. I want to call the shots. I want to inform people. I don't want to ask for permission. And yet, this has been one of the most significant safeguards for my leadership. I'm grateful to have an elder board that asks me hard questions monthly. I'm grateful that they're not impressed with me. But to this day, even submitting to healthy authority is something I wrestle with, but I know God is protecting my soul. 3, am I regularly proximate to people I'm not gaining any social capital from? The temptation is to surround ourselves with people who can advance my influence, to center our lives around an agenda of personal advancement. And one of the antidotes to celebrityism is very simply non-transactional human connection, where people are not a means to an end to expand our territory. And the last question is this: am I living from the center of God's affirming love? It was Aristotle who said that when people don't feel loved, they seek to be admired. And so here's the question: are you living from the center of God's affirming, unconditional love? Or are you rapaciously seeking affirmation? Every Sunday, when I park, sometimes 3 to 4 blocks away from our church building, I have this repeated thought: I don't like having to walk 3 to 4 blocks to get to the church building. I wish I could tell you, I love it. I don't love it. I don't like it. I don't want it. But God knows I need it. Amen.
Well, I told you that talk would be challenging, and I hope it's not only challenging, but I also think it's encouraging. It's encouraging to hear a leader speak to these issues. We don't hear these talks much. It's the kind of information that is so critical right now for leaders to be hearing and listening to. I loved his quote: "Celebrityism is not just a sickness of the soul, it's a disease of the system." There's something about the mediums we create, the structures we create, that start to celebrate these types of things, and it can lead us down the wrong path of what really glorifies God and what God ultimately is calling us towards. So we have to be warned about that and careful about that. If you want to watch this talk, or you want to share it, or maybe this is a perfect conversation to have around the boardroom for your organization or the leaders within your particular setting, or maybe it's the next generation that you lead in the form of a college group or maybe a youth group, and you want to kind of call these things out. The best way to do that is through Q Media, and you can do that through a free trial. You can actually watch this talk, display it, airplay it, watch it as part of a larger group setting, a small group conversation. That's what so many leaders do with these Q talks, just like this. And you can do that by going to qideas.org/trial, where you can get a 30-day free trial, and then you can join in $7.99 a month after that to be a part of this community where these types of talks, hundreds and hundreds of talks on multiple topics that are critical for helping Christians know how to faithfully navigate current culture. So I hope you'll do that, qideas.org/trial, and hope you have a wonderful week.